I think it's probably easier to talk about maybe businesses, as it were, because, for example, if you take the financial services industry, there were some banks or some insurance companies who are already further along the roads in terms of preparing for things like this. So they obviously would have found it easier, easier to make the transition than organizations that tended to resist this reality. You know, all of this for me is against the backdrop of a conversation that has been going on for, at the very minimum, 4 years now, and that is a conversation around the future of work. Okay, we thought it was technology that would change the future. We thought it was all kinds of things. We didn't factor in COVID-19. Although if you think about it, really, COVID-19 was is just a product of a lot of the other mega trends, around globalization, around urbanization, around demographics, by the sheer size of the fact that the world is interconnected and people are congregating in the urban centers. This kind of thing was waiting to happen. So to direct answer to your question, the companies that have found it easier are companies that have been prepared to work remotely and to leverage technology. For example, at PwC, we have been implementing remote working for, at the very minimum, 5 years before now. Okay. The only difference, of course, is that we were not planning on remote working for 100% of our staff. It was supposed to be different sets of people at different times, and it was supposed to be optional. But now this is compulsory, and that has implications on resources and our technology infrastructure and all of that stuff. But I think companies that had anticipated this, and then for those who have not anticipated, organizations and businesses that are agile, that are quick to respond to, because technology is available for them to deploy. So everyone who has been able to quickly respond has found it relatively easy because technology is an enabler.
Great. Amazing. Just before we move on to the next question, one of our participants says that her biggest challenge has been monitoring performance. So I'd like to throw that question to our panelists. How have you been able to monitor performance during this crisis period as employees are working remotely?
So I guess to speak on behalf of Jobberman and the clients that we work with, we found that with monitoring performance, it's typically about the kind of work culture that you have, right? So we found that work cultures that have really thrived with managing performance have maybe like three key features. The first one is that they have decentralized and collaborative management. And what that means is that their team leaders and their management teams have been able to set the scene for what works in their team. So obviously you have the central leadership and the tone from the top, but then the managers then set the tone for their team. And that could include things, daily stand-ups, daily check-ins and check-outs, maybe making a list of your workflow for the week and saying what you've done. And really putting that control into the hands of the decentralized leaders helps to make performance ongoing. The second thing is around increased worker autonomy. So it's one thing to have managers who manage quite well. It's another thing to have disciplined employees who are accountable for the work that they do. Organizations that find that they have increased worker autonomy are finding it a lot easier to manage their performance because the employees are accountable and they have the discipline to put in the time that they need to deliver results. And then I guess the third thing would be about empowering your employees. So you can't expect your employees to work at an optimal performance level if you haven't empowered them to work online. But what that entails is ensuring that they know how to use all the tools that are available to them, things like Slack, Or if there's going to be an office WhatsApp group, are you expecting them to message in that group? Have you told them what you're expecting them to do? Things like Google Hangouts or any other work collaborative tools people use online. Have you empowered them to be able to use that? Have you, for example, given them an allowance in case they need to buy airtime or data to really optimally perform? So I would say the challenges around performance usually fits into one of those three buckets. And if you can answer yourself as an organization that you've addressed those things, then you're more likely to see an optimal level of performance.
Ms. Solusha, do you want to add something to that?
No, I mean, I think, yes, I want to add one or two things. So what has been our experience? I'm not certain. I don't think that we've had problems with performance management. We've always practiced what you would like to call, for want of a better word, because it comes from another company, but I'll use it all the same. Everyday performance management, regular check-ins, right? Mm-hmm. So we work as consultants. We work on a project-by-project basis. So we use a time reporting system. Okay, so every week, I think what has changed, we used to do it every fortnight, but now it became every week. Now it's every day. So every day you have to log in on your timesheet, which is automated on your phone or your laptop, what projects you are on. Okay, so at the end of a week or a month, someone somewhere is looking at what we call utilization levels. And what is the utilization level? Is how much of what you do on a daily basis is client-facing or business development. So that's how we've done it. And then where we found people who were recording low levels of utilization, we've dug in deeper to find out, is this a capability issue? Is it an absence of projects to log on, to be onboarded on and all of that? But just holding people accountable, within a short space of time has helped.
Great, amazing. Thank you so much. I have another question for our participants as we move into how HR has really been leading during this crisis. My question to our participant is, what have you identified as a top concern in the minds of your employees? It's one thing for HR to have our priorities that are, of course, driven, that are people-centric, but have we been listening to our employees, and what have we learned as being very, very key to them or very important to them? So I would ask our speakers, apparently the crisis has forced organizations to relook HR processes and operations. I would ask Felicia, what have you identified, or what has Jobberman identified as HR priority during all of this crisis? That's the first question. And then the same question that I've asked our participants, what have you identified as being a top concern in the minds of your employees? Yeah.
So I'll answer the one about the HR priorities first. I think this changing landscape has really pushed HR to the forefront of the business. If you look at the 2009 financial crisis, I think that was probably the time for CFOs, right? But this crisis is now almost like, HR, this is really your time to step forward and rise to the occasion. And I think our priorities going forward for the future of work, and also like really coming out successfully throughout this crisis, is firstly, being technologically savvy. So there's so many HR processes that have had to move from the traditional physical office space to remote. We're having to recruit employees completely virtually. We're having to onboard them as well completely virtually. Performance management, any kind of disciplinary issues, even having to let go staff remotely as well, and all time management issues as well. So it's very important to be technology savvy. And what I mean by that is not just knowing the tools that you're going to use, but also being the person to recommend that to your organization. What works and what doesn't work. Is there a new software? Is there a new system that we can use to really make sure that our new employees, for example, are being onboarded properly and being checked in at the regular check-in points, so at 3 months and later on down the line. Secondly, I would say that we need to be a lot more analytical with our priorities. So what that means is really thinking about our different processes and our workflows across the organization and understanding what can be done remotely and what needs to be done in a physical office space and how that affects the overall bottom line as a whole. And then I would say lastly, maybe around talent management would be a key priority. So now that we all understand that our future of work is moving to both a mix of the virtual and physical space on a larger scale, our employees have a lot more options. So if I look at our high potentials in the organization, right, they have a whole range of options virtually to choose from. So for example, if you have a working mother or a man who has to take care of his elderly parents, who is a top performer, but because of your work practices, they cannot work in your organization, they're going to be looking for a job where they can work virtually or where they have more flexibility. So we have to be a lot smarter around our talent management in terms of HR priorities, and also around like people coming into our organization, how we are attracting people with the right policies and showing that we are really, really thinking about working virtually in a smart way. I guess your next question was around top concern for employees. At Jobberman, we did an employee satisfaction survey about 2 weeks ago because we've been working remotely for about 6 weeks. And we really wanted to understand what the pain points were, any kind of feedback that we have that we could get from our employees in terms of what they really needed at this time. And the overriding concern was around mental health and work-life balance. So an article I was reading last night, it's called Zoom fatigue. That's like the new slang around using Zoom in this time. We found that a lot of employees are using all these digital channels, and it's actually affecting their mental health. For example, if you take Zoom, for example, people are used to having physical meetings and picking up on non-verbal cues from the people in the room. Obviously, when you're working in the digital space and you're doing back-to-back calls all day and you're not able to pick up on those cues, people who are used to really leaning on those cues are struggling mentally with just coping with working in the virtual space. And then with work-life balance, I mentioned the dangers around work intensification when you're working remotely and you literally wake up at 7 a.m. and you're working till 10 p.m. because you're not trying to get home, you're not commuting anywhere. So we really try to put measures in place to ensure that our employees are okay with their mental health. For example, we asked the doctor to come and have a session about coronavirus, the myths and facts, and how to protect your mental health. And like I mentioned earlier in the call, we've been putting in measures in place to ensure that people aren't burning out with work.
Great. Mr. Olushola, please share with us what you have identified either as for PwC as a consulting company or even with the organizations that you've been supporting through this crisis period. What has the HR identified as top priority for them as leaders in this situation? And also what are the concerns that are burning in the minds of employees as they live through this period and have to be productive?
Yeah, thank you, Nkechi. It's interesting. I mean, the priorities for us and indeed for our clients are not significantly different from the ones that Felicia has spoken about. It's just about, do we have the organization capability, particularly as individuals, right, to navigate through this crisis. So, like I said, while we all thought about the future of work and we thought, oh, we're going to get there by and by, little by little, but it's come suddenly, right? And that suddenness means that some people were not prepared for it. So a major priority for organizations right now is, how do I quickly upskill my people, okay? And therefore bring organizational capability to a level of digital fluency that will help us to win. Okay, I was on a call this morning with one of our clients, and that was the conversation as well. So how do we raise digital fluency in our organization? The lockdown will be lifted on Monday or eased on Monday. But if you've been following the news, even in Wuhan, where this all started from, where the lockdown has been lifted, companies are struggling to get back to their pre-COVID levels of productivity and performance. Because even if everybody said, even if the government said you can go to the restaurant, you can go everywhere, not everybody is going to go, okay? Because we still have concerns. And speaking about the concerns of the people, that's a major concern. That, okay, so what is the guarantee about my health care, my wellness? So beyond even work-related wellness around burnout and all that, but even, there's fear. Everybody's afraid, right? So if people are still avoiding one another, and so on and so forth, of course, there's the concern about loss of job, loss of income, because some companies are going the extra mile to look at their staff costs and stuff like that. Okay, but beyond that, like I said, the major priority is upskilling, how to make sure that people have the right skills. If we say that this thing is going to end soon, what if it doesn't really end? Or what if when it does end, the whole world now has no choice but to go digital? It's very interesting that this is happening in 2020, because when we were younger, we used to watch all kinds of science fiction movies that predicted that by 2020, the world will be filled with robots. I think that is becoming a reality. So if you are an organization who is not upskilling your people, and they don't know about robotic process automation, they don't know about how to use robots for service. I went out to a pharmacy yesterday, and the doorman is still a human being. There's no reason on earth why I should have a contact with anyone if I go to a pharmacy. No reason in the world that we're in. So that's the priority for organizations. For the people, a big concern is their health and wellness. So organizations need to think about, how do we address that? When the lockdown is lifted and people begin to go to work, and even if we follow the government regulation that only half of about 60% should be at work at the same time, what if one member of the team that is at work is tested positive? Even if all the others are negative, you know what the government is going to do? They're going to shut down that department. What does that have to say as far as business continuity is concerned? So those are the things that we need to be addressing, as it were.
Yes. And I think that for a lot of organizations, the hard truth is tough decisions will be made as regards pay cuts, layoffs, and or reducing work hours of employees. And these are all things that are going to impact productivity. So my question is, how will organizations work through this? You've already mentioned upskilling, but then when organizations need to reduce their head count, but they still need to produce at the same level, maintain the same level of productivity, and then they have fewer numbers of employees that are able to do that, and they do not have the financial budgets to onboard new employees, how do they work around maximizing the skill sets, but also improving or training their current staff to be able to handle all of these new demands that that we cannot really wiggle away from as a result of this crisis?
Okay, Felicia, do you want to go, or do you want me? Is that for me?
It's for both of you, but I would like, okay, Felicia, maybe go first, since
okay. Okay, so I think what's key at this time, because we're all making very difficult decisions and there's a lot of change happening, is change management. And I know that's a term that's thrown around in HR circles, but I think it's very key right now to have a proper change management strategy and plan in place. And what that would entail are maybe two key things, which are communication and training. right? So the first thing is ongoing communication with everybody in your organization. You know, what's going on? What do we need you to do? What do we need to see from your teams? Why we've made these difficult decisions, and how we're really going to take it forward. And then on the other hand is training. So the employees that are left, what skills do they need to be able to do the extra work that's now being pushed on them? And how are you going to enrich their skills such that they are able to do these jobs and they're empowered to do the work that they need to do? So I would say it's an effective change management strategy is very key at this time for every HR professional in terms of ensuring that employee morale and productivity stays at an optimal level over the next few months and years.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Olushila?
Yeah. In every organization, we always say there are three kinds of performance. We say there is the A star, the person who has great performance and great potential. Then we have the B players who have high potential, but the performance is not yet high. Okay, so they can do it, but they're not yet doing it. And then of course we have the C players who are not necessarily potential is not happening, is not existent, or it has waned, and then obviously performance is not existing. So there is no better time. At the risk of sounding like a harsh business nose person, which HR people should be, we need to be business savvy. There's no better time than to take a critical look at the makeup of your employees. You know, how many of them are stars? How many of them are what we call the institutional fabric? You know, great potential, but performance is not at par. And then what percentage of them are what we call the laggards? You know, so when you take a critical look at that, there's no better time to have a very strong conversation with your C players, okay? And what you're finding many organizations do is that this is a time when they are encouraging those C players. So when things were good, we could accommodate a lot of slack and we'll try different methods. But as organizations are doing this is, the C players are the ones who are the first casualties of COVID-19. And C players, unfortunately, don't always have to be underperforming people. Sometimes, because of the drop in business activity, a lot of the slack talent that we had in contracts and all of those things are also being critically reviewed. Because if the full-time employees are not fully engaged, then why do I need a high complement of contractual staff? Then the B players, this is also the time to have a strong conversation, to Felicia's point, around training and development so that they can ramp up their performance. Because we need everybody to be at their best at this time. And of course, the A players need higher challenges. So the whole idea basically is around communicating expectations, managing actual data around what you are doing and what your contribution. Contribution is key at this point in time. There's no, business leaders are looking to HR to have those strong and tough conversations with, presenting those hard numbers around the people who are not helping us to reach our numbers at this time.
Good. I also want to ask, has this forced us to reevaluate job roles in organizations and be like I think you've already touched a bit on that point when we look at, the makeup of our employees in the organization, but also job roles. Has this crisis helped us identify job roles that perhaps are not as relevant as we thought that they were, or they can be, how do you say, synced to another existing job role? They didn't need to be. Now they don't need to be a function on their own, but we can merge it into another function. I don't know if something like that has happened, if you've evaluated something like that within Jobberman, Felicia?
So when the crisis started, we looked at, on a strategic level, looked at the utilization of all our teams and the capacity levels and who was being optimally utilized or underutilized. And because we're already quite a lean organization, it was clear to see that actually everyone is at least at an optimal utilization level, right? Mm. And is it just a physical thing where maybe we don't have as much activity in this area, so this person might be underutilized right now, but long term, we expect they're going to go back to their optimal utilization level. So it's been more around doing rotations within the organization. So there's some areas now that are so full with capacity in terms of how much activity they have going on. So for example, our youth engagement team has been doing so many Facebook Live webinars because we've had that demand from the job seekers. This is a time when people are trying to find out what kind of skills they need. So that team is now so heavily utilized that other people in other parts of the teams or organizations are now volunteering to work with them to support in that area. So it's been more around thinking about the resources that we have and how to optimally utilize them across our organization, because we're already quite lean as a group.
Great. And Mr. Olushola, across the different businesses that PwC has been helping through this crisis, have they also had to reevaluate job functions, job roles, and perhaps think in the future this job role might not be relevant as we ease into the new normal?
Well, I mean, as you said earlier, I kind of spoke to that when I talked about how you can look at your A, B, C people. So part of the metrics that you use to determine someone's potential is to look at whether this is the direction we're going. So for example, I've always, just as an example, I've always wondered why we need petrol attendants at petrol stations in Nigeria. In the developed economies of the world, you know, that's rare. Okay, so if petrol companies in Nigeria decide that they're going to man their gas pumps or petrol pumps with e-payments, you know, so you just go there, put in your credit card, and then, you know, so that high-performing salesman, the petrol attendant, suddenly becomes a C because the potential for his job just got wiped out. Governor Sanwo-Olu said yesterday that the governor of Lagos State said that even when the restaurants open, no more dining in, right? Everybody's got to do takeout. So if you had a great person who was very good at, you know, seating people at tables, you know, you go to some restaurants, you got like 3 people welcoming you, then they go and sit you on the table. And they became stars by doing that. That job suddenly became less relevant. Yeah. So, so that's on one side. On the other hand, if you have people in your team who possess the skills for the future, okay, then clearly, just because of their having that technology savviness, or the fact that you're employing new technology, it makes their job value as individuals just multiplies, right? Okay, you know, it just multiplies. For example, in our office, we use a lot of these technology platforms for our webinars. You know, one of the professionals who many people probably didn't even notice before is now the chief. You know, if he doesn't respond to us, we're all in trouble because he's the master of, you know, all the different platforms. So definitely, job roles are going to be changing. Job values are going to change, and some will be less valuable than others.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Felicia, as we begin to assess the impact, when I spoke to you, let me just read out this from a recent research by McKinsey. They project that between 9 million to 18 million of formal jobs in Africa could be lost or made redundant, clearly from what we've said even, due to this crisis. And about 100 million informal jobs in occupation and sectors are vulnerable to loss of income. And I wanted to know from you, Felicia, have you already started seeing this play out as regards the volume of, job announcements that employers are putting out? And if you can share some data and statistics around that. Before we started, I mentioned to you already that I can imagine, the impacts in terms of unemployment rates that this is going to have in Nigeria. Already we're coming from somewhere where the rate we're hovering around 23%, if not more. And I can imagine that the impact of this crisis would even, take that percentage higher. So what has Jobberman experienced within the 6 weeks of COVID-19 crisis?
So I guess I'll give you the answer from two perspectives. So I'll look at the job seeker side and employers, because those are the two drivers of our hiring patterns on our website. So on the back end of our platform, the data showed that just before a lockdown, we were actually quite high on our listings. However, the week of the lockdown, our listings dropped by, I think it was about 38%, significantly. But by the next week, funny, they started picking up again. So what we noticed was, from talking to our clients and obviously trying to bring our sales back up, we noticed that it wasn't that people weren't hiring, it was that they didn't want to pay for listings to advertise. Because, as Mr. Olushola mentioned in one of his previous answers, people are really looking at cost-cutting measures and how they can really optimize their costs. So it's not that people weren't hiring, but they were trying to make sure that they were spending the money the right way. So we launched a campaign called Unity in Adversity, and what that means is we are doing completely free listings on our platform for the next 3 months. And the previous week when we started that, the week after we started that campaign, our listings grew by 300%. And now we have over 1,000 jobs on our website. So what that shows me is that people are still hiring. I'll touch more on what sectors are really driving these trends. What that shows me is that people are still hiring. They're just making tougher hiring decisions about what roles to fill and what roles are the roles for the future. On the job seeker side, we saw a decrease in our sign-ups for all our events just that week of the lockdown, and which makes sense, right? Because if you're a job seeker, you're not going to be signing up to an event in Unilag where you're going to stand in a crowd of 1,000 people. It's just not what you want to do if you're not trying to catch coronavirus. So immediately we changed all our events to webinars, Facebook Live events, Instagram Live events, where we're talking about relevant skills that will help people get placed in the jobs that are listed in our website. Let me touch on the industries that are hiring based on our data. So the 5 top industries that are hiring are technology, banking and finance, FMCG, healthcare, education and training, with technology by a mile being the top one. And when you think about what drives demand for hiring in industries, it's really about how the business is doing. So if you look at technology, obviously now that we're all working virtually, the demand for technology is so high. So in terms of the data that we're using, in terms of the airtime that we're using to conduct our business in the virtual world, in terms of looking at supermarkets that traditionally would open in the physical space, they've now moved a lot of their operations to e-commerce where people can shop online because nobody's trying to go out into the supermarkets. We're all in lockdown and it's a lot more difficult to actually do physical shopping the way we used to. If you look at healthcare, that's almost changed completely. We now have a lot more telemedicine services, and obviously we're going to need to hire people who can drive those services. So I got an email from a hospital in Nigeria about 2 weeks ago. It's called South Shore Hospital, that they're now offering telemedicine services, and there are a lot more hospitals that are doing this across not just Lagos but also across Nigeria and the rest of Africa. So I think these 5 sectors, technology, banking and finance, FMCG, healthcare, education and training, are really driving the hiring trends. And I think we're going to see more employers looking for people who can help to boost their sales in those areas. Another thing that I will touch on is self-employment. So historically, we've seen that during pandemics or any kind of health crisis, financial crisis, self-employment has gone up. And I really think that's going to be a key driver in getting our hiring trends to a more optimal point, because people being more entrepreneurial in Nigeria and Africa across the world will boost hiring in their organizations and also just create more economic activity to boost the hiring.
Thank you so much. Ms. Olushola, do you want to jump in? When we spoke yesterday, you did mention that the finance sector was one of the sector that could easily make this transition because they were, especially in Nigeria, that they were miles ahead in terms of adopting digital work practices. And it's obvious that they can also continue to hire, even though other sectors have to freeze hiring or even terminate hiring. So what can you share, in light of this as well?
Sorry, so what's the question? I mean, you kind of answered it.
No, just what is driving, how are they able to still be in need of, resources at this point in time?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, thank you, thanks. I mean, clearly, this is painful because the whole conversation around building digital skills or building skills for the future of work has been on for a few years. Okay, it's not the end of the world. It's not irredeemable. But one thing is clear: this crisis has opened up a new world of opportunity. I mean, if you have been receiving alerts from your banks, if you are based in Nigeria, one of the banks just said today that they want to give licenses to individuals to become money transfer agents, right? Totally new business line, okay? So someone is coming up with all of that in that organization. So anybody who can add value to an organization right now, I mean, in every crisis, there's opportunity. Take, for instance, what the governor of Lagos State said yesterday in his address on the details of the easing of this lockdown. So we're starting something in Lagos called Mask Up Lagos. So you can imagine that if you know how to make great masks, right? And if your organization can now, because these things are reusable, right? So that's a new toilet roll. So if you can produce them en masse, either through some automated process or you are just good at it, then you're in business. I was at the store a few days ago, and I remember when the pandemic got to Nigeria, and people were running around. I remember going to Abuja, and I was so happy to find hand sanitizers. And I was wondering what's happening to all the pharmaceutical businesses in Nigeria. This is the time. If you know how manufacturing works, every material you put in a hand sanitizer is already part of the byproducts of the whole manufacturing process, all the alcohol and all of that stuff. So it is a great source of joy that in many stores now, we now have locally produced hand sanitizers by, the May and Bakers of this world, the Sanofis of this world. So there's opportunity. Going even beyond that, the world is now looking for vaccines and, drugs to treat the coronavirus. So any organization whose virological capabilities or manufacturing capabilities, and of course, all of this is no longer being done by going into the forest and looking for a herb to make the medication. So there's a lot of synthetic analysis going on using technology and digital analyzers and all of that stuff. So anyone who is able to operate, any individual that is able to rapidly upskill themselves, and people may be in a panic and say, well, how can I rapidly upskill myself before this pandemic is over? As I have said earlier, it is a no-brainer that when this is over, it's not yet over. So a new set of skills, a new set of industries are starting even in this crisis. The guys who are making hand sanitizers, I can bet you are not really praying that this thing will end quickly. The guys who make face masks, why would I buy a face mask until now? But yesterday, I started quite a number. So, hey, new opportunities. So, we have a campaign in PwC called New World, New Skills. That's what it is. New world, new skills.
All right. So we'll be rounding up now, and my last question would be for HR practitioners that are on this webinar, what should we be evaluating today that would help us be workforce advisors to our business leaders? For a HR leader who is, you're considering managing this crisis, but also thinking about the future, where should we be thinking towards? What should we be looking at? What metrics should we be measuring to make sure that we rightly advise our leaders to build processes and procedures that are fit for this new normal, especially in our HR function? So Felicia, I'll let you go for it first.
Okay. So I guess looking at recruitment, right? Because I'll start with recruitment as a key process in terms of driving your workforce into the future. You need to get the right people in with the right skills to ensure that they have the skills that you need for your business to thrive in this future workforce. And let's talk about soft skills, because I think these are really going to be the skills that really take employees forward in the future. And soft skills are different from technical skills. They are quite integral to defining your organizational culture and how your work really flows in terms of serving your customers optimally. And there's skills like emotional intelligence, personal effectiveness, time management, those intangible skills that really make a difference to the world of work. And I would say the top 3 skills to look out for as an HR practitioner during recruitment would be communication, teamwork, and flexibility, especially in the world that we're moving into. Under communication, right, it's not just oral communication, it's also business writing, because we're going to be communicating both in the virtual space and also obviously in the physical world of work. With teamwork, that's not just within your organization, that's also cross-organization collaboration. So recently, Google and Apple came up with a coronavirus tracking tool, and obviously that would have involved a lot of cross-organization, teamwork, and collaboration. With flexibility and adaptability, this one's really important because you need to hire employees who, no matter what crisis happens, no matter what change happens, they're able to quickly pick up new skills and be agile and flexible in terms of doing what your business needs next. And from talking to job seekers and employers in Jobberman, we've seen that this is so important. So we're actually launching a soft skills training curriculum. I would recommend enrolling in it. It starts on the 4th of May and it's completely free. So we're going to be training people in all kinds of soft skills, the ones I mentioned and even more. So I would say as an HR practitioner, you really need to be trying to hire employees who have the soft skills and I guess the technical skills as well for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Olushola?
Please. Yeah, I mean, everything I want to say, Felicia seems to be saying. So. But so we have this research center in PwC called the Katzenbach Center, and you can check it out. And over the years, Katzenbach, Katzzenbach, okay, over the years, in recent years, over the last 2-3 years, we've come up with 4 big things that organizations need to measure and also nurture in their people. Those 4 things feed into the digital fitness of an individual or an organization. And what are these 4 things? Number 1, like Felicia said, skills. So there are, whether we like it or not, there are technical skills that you need to have. obviously at different levels of proficiency. So things around data and analytics, all of what we're talking about rests on the platform of data, okay? Everything. So at whatever level of proficiency, everybody needs to understand data analytics. So there are things, there's a lot of noise somewhere.
Sorry, let me go on mute. I think it might be from me.
Okay,
Oh.
Thanks. So there's the blockchain, okay? There's robotics. There's robotics process automation. There's a whole suite of technical skills. But like Felicia said, what our research has found out also, however, is that the soft skills that we had kind of relegated to the background and called those soft skills, you know, are actually the same. Those are the real skills that you need to power those applications. So, you know, for Apple to realize that to help you to design a phone that is counterintuitive, that understands how we operate, somebody somewhere understands UX, you know, the user experience. Someone has emotional intelligence, is able to think about the emotions of normal people. What would you like to see, and so on and so forth. So the other three things are actually they fall in the domain of the soft skills. So what is the second one? Mindsets. The mindset you need to lead people or to even operate in the what used to be future of work, but now of work has changed. Okay, so there's a cartoon I saw somewhere about one executive who asked his secretary, or asked his not secretary, has a member of his team to go and print for him 50 copies of a report titled Digital Workforce Transformation. Did you get the joke? Okay. So how do you talk about digital workforce transformation? He asked me to go and print 50 copies of the report. How about emailing it to you? Okay. It will surprise you that we have done work with some organizations who have said to us, we don't want you to give us soft copies. We want you to give us hard copies. And I'm like, hey, what are you talking about? If I give you a soft copy, it's yours forever. You can use it for whatever you want. You have the right. No. We want you to prove to us. So we want to leave this place with a binder. So mindsets have to change. Okay. So leaders, for example, have to have a different mindset around trust. Many leaders had a mindset around if I don't see you, how do I know you are working? Okay.
Yes.
But in the new world of work that has been accelerated by COVID-19, you might not be able to see me, but you've got to trust that I am going to deliver. And then, of course, relationships is the third pillar. If we are not able to relate with people, one another, so now you're going to have the supply chain featuring. So if you bake cakes, for example, if you don't know how to relate with people, your dispatch rider is not going to serve you, and then you're going to have to eat your cake all by yourself, okay? Because nobody's going to come to your shop to come and order cakes anymore. And then, of course, you know, underpinning all of that is behaviors, you know, things around curiosity. You see, it doesn't matter how much technology platform you roll out in your organization. If people are not curious about the new things, they will not be quick on the uptake, right? So you can teach people curiosity. You can teach them adaptability. You can assess that in them and nurture that. So those are the four big things: skills, mindsets, relationships, and behaviors. If we can assess that, so when you're interviewing next, skills are important, but is this person curious? If you're hiring someone who is not curious and he has not done anything new in the last 1 year, you can be sure that when it comes to your organization, it's going to be talking about the old. One interview question we asked today, and I say that in closing, is what is one new thing you have done in the last 3 months to develop yourself?
Wow. As
in one new thing, okay? The guy can't remember.
I'm writing that down. That's
our
really.
participants.
I'm adding that to my interview questions.
Yes. And I would like our participants to also respond to that. What is the one new thing that you've done in the past? Is it 3 months or in the past 1 month?
You choose the time frame. I mean, you've had 8 weeks of sitting at home. You've had 8 weeks of lockdown in Nigeria. If you haven't done anything new, then you're doing yourself a lot of yeah. And it doesn't have to be a book. It can be that I now, well, Gloria says she can now bake. Oops. Fantastic.
Yeah. Or someone, or someone can now has adopted a healthier lifestyle. I do 5 minutes of burpees every day, which is good as well.
Excellent. Yeah.
Okay. So just I think we've ended the session, and I think we kept to time, which is very good. So thank you so much for this amazing session that we've had. Before I let you both go, we received a question from one of our participants. She had 2 questions. One is, she says she would like to know the best SOP, standard operating procedure, HR policies and guidelines to implement while returning to work post COVID-19. And then the second question is, what role should HR play to ensure that non-skeletal staff are utilizing their time and being productive while at home? Okay.
Okay. Let me take the second one, and then Felicia can take the policies one. She's the head of HR. I'm not. Yeah, if I understand the question is, how do I, how can I help?
Ensure that non-skeletal staff are utilizing their time and being productive while remote working. So it's, I think it's monitoring productivity like the same thing.
Yes. I mean, I think I kind of touched on this earlier. So performance expectations need to be clearly set. Then you need to strike the right balance between regular check-ins and giving people autonomy. Okay. So don't micromanage, but you can say, let's have, for instance, in PwC, now in the advisory part of the business, we have weekly check-ins. We used to have monthly, like the entire advisory practice, we had monthly check-ins, but now we do it every week. We have one today, where we just, and it's not a heavy performance management conversation. It's just, so how are you doing? How are you doing with yourself, your work, and all of that? What are the challenges? What can we do to help you to get better and stuff like that? And then, of course, we discuss a little bit about the numbers and how we can get better with that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Felicia, over to you.
The question was,
yes.
The question was around best procedures for returning back to work.
Yes. Yes.
So I would say there are probably 3 things to really look into, 3 buckets to really look into, and that's around commuting. How are your employees going to get to and from work? While they're at work, what are you going to do? And also, that's the second thing. And then thirdly, how are you going to make sure, what are the escalation procedures in case somebody does contract coronavirus? So under the schedule, right, we're looking at things like, should everybody be in the office at the same time? No. So if you look at the directives from the Lagos State government, it says no more than a certain number of people. So do you have to think about things like maybe half your staff should be in the office for 2 weeks, and then the second half come for the next 2 weeks, while the other half is working remotely at that time? And in between the shifts, do you have a deep clean? Literally, disinfect your office in between those 2 shifts. While each set of employees are in the office, do you need to clean your office every hour? And that's things like disinfectant wipes, cleaning high touch surfaces, so places where people are touching quite often. Do you need to ensure that you're not bringing any catered food into the office, because apparently that could also make the spread worse. Then also looking into your commuting time as the second thing. So do you need to provide masks for your employees? Many of them might be taking public transport to come into work and to leave. Do you need to provide at least 2 masks to your employees so that they can have a mask to come in and have a mask to leave? when they're going as well. You need to do staggered starts and stops so that people are arriving during times that are not peak and rush hours. So maybe starting work at 10 and leaving at 3, so that they're within the time and also beating the curfew and also missing the time when you have high traffic. And then I guess the last thing would be around the health and safety measures and policies. So ensuring that everybody knows what to do in case they do contract coronavirus and have a strict policy around that. So who to escalate to, not to come into the office, who you should message, and what the next steps would really be. So I would say it's a good time now, this week, that the lockdown is being lifted next week, to really think about the strategy for your staff and ensuring that you really communicated that clearly to everyone.
All right, thank you so much. One more question that just came in. One of our participants said that the challenge they've been having first is balancing parenting and working at home. I think this refers to workers that are married and have to take care of their kids. And I don't know what kinds of policies or initiatives that you implemented that helped such kinds of employees navigate these challenges. Can you share?
So there are two things, right, that I would say. The first one was flexi policy. So we have flexible working hours, and most parents have used that to their advantage, even during this time. So what that means is you're working 8 hours in the day, but you're choosing the hours that suit you. So it could be 7:30 to 3:30. Typically, when we're working in the office, that's because maybe you want to do school pickups and be there when your children are at home to help with homework. So that's one area we've maintained the flexi hours even in our remote working time. The second thing would be around leave. So if you don't have any help and you're a parent and you're working at home, it's completely unrealistic to expect that you're going to be productive. So I would advise companies that during this time, it would be good to let the parents take their annual leave in this time so that they can realistically take care of their children. And when you're resuming back in the office post-lockdown, they're fully able to give themselves to work.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much once again for joining. We have come to the end of the webinar. And indeed, it's been a very, very interesting and knowledge sharing session. I think that I would just end with this key points that I noted down as we considered what HR should be evaluating as we ease into the new normal. Felucia, you mentioned that, of course, recruitment is a key thing that we should pay attention to, and soft skills as well. That was echoed by Mr. Olushola. Soft skills that used to be relegated to the background are now the make or the break of the future. According to Mr. Olushola as well, yes, skills, but also mindset. I think for HR, if we expect our organizations to change their mindset, we also need to change our mindset as well. So it's something that it's both organizational, but also applies to us. Developing relationship, but also adjusting our behavior. And I would say that at the heart of this is really this word that we use every day, which is called agility. There is never a time that agility has been much more needed than today. How quickly are you able to move, to change, to adapt, but also always keeping that long-term focus of course, business sustainability, profitability, but today as well, the well-being of our employees. So thank you so much again for making out this time to be with us. And I would say, have a lovely day. I know you probably all still have a few more webinars to attend to. So thank you so much, and do enjoy the rest of the day and keep safe.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.